Welcome again to another episode of Beats and Talk on Tech Biites. And today I'm very excited to have someone with us here from one of the top tech companies here in Nigeria. He'll be introducing himself and we'll get to know him and learn a lot from his experience, what he does, and how this can benefit you also that are watching. And thank you so much, Patrick, for joining us today. And we'd like to just get to know you, what your role, what you do, where you work, and how you got to where you are now.
All right, thank you, Timmy. So my name is Patrick Oduah. I think I'm one of the few people who introduces himself that way. I always seem to introduce myself with my first name and then my first name and last name. All right. So I currently work as the. Okay, so let me put it this way. So I am an information security engineer first, right? And then also I am the chief information security officer for Interswitch. I'm also the data protection officer for Interswitch. My work experience is going to about 18 years now. So I am the type of CISO that has an IT background. Core IT background. I started off in technology back in the days. Had short spells in different teams in technology, so I kind of touched around the data center, database, sysadmin, networking. And back then, the thing was always around getting certified. So, at some point, you say, have you got your CCNA? So when you get CCNA, have you got in CMP, stuff like that. And so I was in that era, right? So while I was in technology, the organization I was with at the time was trying to certify to ISO 27001. Which is a certification for cybersecurity. Which is a certification for information security.
Okay.
And so that was how my journey started, because I had been to a lot of teams in technology, and so somehow providence fell on me where the IT security team at the time needed to hire someone in-house, the junior staff, to join the team, and the lot fell on me, and of course I was interviewed and I got in, and that was how I stumbled into IT security initially. And then of course the journey of moving from an organization that was not ISO 27001 compliant to being an organization that was compliant kind of helped take me from a novice in the security field to someone kind of understood a few more things, and so then that was how it started. So from there, first I was the IT security administrator, then I metamorphosed to an information security analyst, then metamorphosed to an information security risk analyst, and then on and on like that. So it was a transformation that took close to 12 years in the making. And what I will say is how I started off in IT is not how I am now, but it was the firm building blocks for where, because IT, the technology experience served as very good foundations for me to be able to build up to where I am now.
Thank you so much. That's really insightful and helpful to know how that progression happened. So if you are watching and you think that 1 or 2 years, there's always that picture people paint. Yeah, tech is good, but people try to paint a very fast kind of system, But it's good to have that foundation and then build upon it. So thank you for giving us that insight into your background. Now, there's a lot of words about cybersecurity, information security, data privacy. How do they? Is there any difference between them? How do they really differ? And how are they related in the way organizations can use these things to get themselves protected?
Okay, so similarities between data protection, privacy, information security, cybersecurity. I think what keeps them together are the building blocks around information security, which is confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information. However, data protection and privacy is a subset of information security, right? And the practitioners for that aspect of information security are purely advisory.
Okay.
They're purely advisory. They advise you, but you as the business, you take the ultimate decision. So in that light, if there's an infraction, if there is a data breach, the data protection or privacy officers are not liable and are not responsible either. And that's captured in the GDPR laws that cover Europe and NDPR laws that cover Nigeria, right? The NDPR, the data protection and privacy laws were signed into law this year, so they're effective. Then for information security deals with information and data, the securing of information and data, physical and abstract. Right? Information security covers as far as your physical security, which is your security guard at the door, your CCTVs, the data you store in cabinets, in flash drives, in movable drives, whatever. Information security. Whereas cybersecurity deals with the domain in cyberspace on the internet. So that's the key differentiator. But however, what keeps them all in the same sphere is they all deal with the confidentiality of information, the availability of information, and the integrity of this information. So that's the similarities and that's the difference between these three.
Yeah, thank you.
Of security. Yeah.
So the follow-up question will be, when companies fail to maximize, these three key aspects, what kind of threats are the most common that you have seen so far in the industry that businesses you have faced?
Yeah, because truth be told, in sub-Saharan Africa, the regulators drive policy. And because of that, in Nigeria, for instance, the telecommunications and financial sectors are the most regulated that I know, right? It might be others, but these are the ones I know. And this regulation is pushed by CBN. And so to that extent, I would say one of the greatest threats we've seen, right, to which the regulators try to make sure organizations protect themselves against things like phishing, insider threats, ransomware. Okay, so for those of us who don't know what they are, phishing emails are those emails you get that are unsolicited, trying to prompt you to click on links to
take an action.
And yeah, action, requesting you to fill up forms and the rest. Ransomware, of course, is when a malicious software is installed on any of your assets, either your laptop or whatever, and holds your data ransom, requesting you to provide some form of payment before that data is released to you, right? And of course, insider threats. Those three have proved to be one of the, should I say, the top three issues organizations face. Because a good example would be I just left the university. I set up a startup, right? I've been developing a platform while I was in school. So I have all this information on my laptop, and then I'm going from place to place, trying to sell my idea as an entrepreneur. And then I don't have funds or resources to buy the big servers, to buy an enterprise antivirus, to buy an enterprise software like Office 365 and the rest. So I just get bits and pieces of free software download just to get my application running and help me with my demos. Now, unfortunately, while I'm doing that, right, I get hit by ransomware. I mean, I go online and I'm trying to download a library that will help me in developing my platform further. And when I unbox the library to link to my platform, I download the ransomware. Do you understand? And then, so those are the kind of things we see, especially for small, medium scale enterprises that struggle with budgeting, because indeed, you see that things like phishing, ransomware, insider threats, they are always there, right? And the level to which you're able to deal with them is actually depends on the amount of resources you have, right? So those are the top three we have currently that we're dealing with, and unfortunately, they are always there. They will always, metamorphose and re-engineer as technology improves.
Yeah. So, when you were just talking, the question just popped in my head. A lot of people used to say Nigerian systems are poorly designed and all that. What's your take on that? Would you say that we have good security systems, technology systems in Nigeria?
Okay, so I think that is the narrative people push out there, right? But in all reality, right, and in all sincerity, Nigerian systems, especially for the banks, let me not even just say bank. So I will speak to what I know. So I'll just say for the financial sector, right, the technology backing the security is world class. It's world class, right? And I'll give you two reasons to back up my point, right? Okay, so those of us who travel a lot, you can attest to this, and this is my first example. If you go to a country like the US, those of us who travel a lot will notice that our ATM cards are different from the cards they use in the US. Now, in the US, they still use the mark stripe card, which enables you to swipe or insert into an ATM or POS. But in Nigeria, we migrated from the mark stripe to chip and pin cards as far back as 2010, 2011. And that was backed by regulation, CBN, to drop the amount of frauds we were seeing at the time from skimming devices that were being installed on ATMs at the time. Now, when you go to the US, anytime you bring out your card, they will always make this comment, say, "Oh, you have one of those new cards." Now, to them, it's new because they're still trying to adopt it, right? But it's as old as 10, 12 years in Nigeria. You understand? So that's on one side. And on the second side, I'll give you another example. In 2018, the NHS in the UK had the issue when there was a vulnerability that was exploited on Windows XP. And everybody in Nigeria, everybody in southern, should I say sub-Saharan Africa, were like, wait, you mean NHS is still on Windows XP? Like, seriously. Yes, meanwhile, in Nigeria, in sub-Saharan Africa, in Nigeria, Ghana, here, most people have moved. Like, even the guys in the universities have moved from XP. So you see, so these are the simple examples I give. So but then I also understand the narrative when people say oh, it's porous. It's not actually porous. The challenges we have is usually with configuration. It's usually this configuration issue and the insider threats to talk about. Right? Yeah. So that's it.
Thank you so much. I also know that this two-factor thing that we used to do in Nigeria, that one also just newly got it came just after just became a thing outside. And yes, when there was a system I integrated for an European whatever company, and then it was new thing for them, but we were already used to using OTP and two-factor. So I used to wonder when people say that Nigerian systems, and I just smile that the narrative sometimes can be.
See, let me even tell you, in 2018, I was at a summit, right, where CBN took a couple of us to a summit in the US, and the FBI, and you can quote me anywhere, the FBI came up and they were talking to us about two-factor authentication and tokenization, and everybody were like, what?
I mean,
like seriously, like and when they were presenting, they were making it sound like it was
something new and big,
so yeah.
So amazing. So now you mentioned things in those threats that especially small businesses face. So what would you think would be some things that they can do, in light that they don't have big budgets? What are the things you feel this can be effective for small businesses and startups, that are still working on lean budgets and the likes, to implement, strategies to secure themselves?
Yeah, well, I think the most important thing, really, on the first day you set up, right? Most businesses think, once I have an MD, CEO, or founder, I should get an accountant, a sales manager, there may be a chief operations guy, and we're good to go. But I usually say, on the first day, when you're putting up all those positions, have somebody who is responsible for information security from the beginning. Secondly, build information security into your operations, into your business, right? And it's almost the same thing as saying build risk, right? If you have a proper risk management function and then an information security function, build those two blocks from the beginning. When you're on your marks, when you get set, when you're go, right? Quick wins would also, because once you have someone responsible for it, then that person can drive your quick wins, right? And your quick wins will be awareness. Always be aware, right? These are things, awareness is free, right? That person can easily go online, get material and share with the staff. The staff can be 5, can be 10, can be 2, can be 15. Have proper awareness. Awareness is not just sharing flyers. Have scenario conversations. Sit down, talk with people, let people understand what is. Also, review your processes. Look at your processes. See what parts of your processes are vulnerable. What parts of your processes can lead to some form of loss, right? And the reason why I say this is because the insider threats we see, and we've seen in the past 15 years, is people become subject matter experts by virtue of the fact that they sit on a particular desk. Over time, they understand your process. Over time, they see the loopholes. Now, if you do not have a good staff, this person will identify that loophole and not report it, but to begin to exploit it. So you need to be able to always review your processes, identify the vulnerabilities within your processes, and begin the journey of closing those vulnerabilities. That way, you strengthen your processes, and your processes are your guardrails. Your processes help to guide your teams. And then those processes, when you're able to design them in such a way that they are devoid of loopholes, they will be backed by your policies, the information security policies. But once you have the policies and procedures in place, people come into your organization, learn your policies, and then you see that your process becomes better. Now, in everything we've described, you've not spent a kobo. You've not spent a dime. Right? So that's why it's always important for us to have someone responsible from day one. And then this person designs a program that will do these things, right? And so after 2, 3, 4 years, right, then you can begin to spend. Of course, you might want to spend within the 4 years, but nothing substantial, but just simple stuff, because of course, we can't have systems that don't have antivirus, so we can always get 1 or 2, right? But the most important thing, and because information security, cybersecurity, it's people, technology, processes. I always focus a lot on people and processes first. Technologies would always be delivered by these two things: your processes and your people. Because if you have not heads, no matter the technology you get, it won't work. So those are the kind of advices I give, or more like those approaches, the kind of approach I would recommend to small and medium scale organizations that are coming up and are, trying to mitigate some of the real life scenarios we see in cybersecurity today.
Thank you so much. Some scenarios came to mind when you were talking about people and processes. I think there was a time in a story about someone in the IT department at Covenant that was able to divert people's school fees. And before it came to light, a lot, millions over, I think, a couple of years or so. So it's really critical to have those things in place. And I'm sure you can't share stories with us, but
I can share some stories, but it's just it will be vague. But yeah, there used to be in one of the organizations I worked, there used to be a guy who never went on leave. Now this dovetails into what I explained earlier about cybersecurity, information security, and data protection. So this is an information security issue, right? There was a guy who never went on leave for 4 years. He always had some form of excuse for not going on leave, and his boss took it that he was hardworking and meticulous, and he was always winning awards, and they were always using him as an example.
Wow.
This young man never went on leave because he had discovered a loophole in his process, and he was enriching himself through that process. And he never came to work in a good suit or tie. He always looked haggard, tattered.
So nothing to give it away.
Nothing to give. Even the car he drove used to be push and start. Like everybody would push and start. So people used to pity him. Like people would even buy him food in the office, However, information security, especially ISO 27001, always says that your process has to be auditable, right? So at some point, the auditor came in and reviewed his processes and found that loophole. And of course, during the investigation and all that, he found out that this person that they were always pushing his car for had luxurious cars in his house, and he built a massive house in Lekki. And everything was just a ruse. And in his church, he was known as one of the big givers. Now, when people heard that story, they couldn't marry to the person they were seeing. They were like, this guy wasn't eating in the office. So these are the things. Once your processes become weak, right, people begin to exploit them, and these are the things that happen time to time.
Awesome. People, processes, key. Now, when issues like this happen, what are the steps? What are the first steps a company can take to mitigate or to even address, let's say in the case of a data breach, or the example you have mentioned, what are the next steps you think companies can take?
The very first thing is isolation, because you need to isolate the problem. Because what we always say is everybody's going to be breached. It just depends on when, right? But if a breach occurs and you're fortunate enough to find out, the first thing you do is to isolate the systems. The systems that that have been compromised, just isolate them. Isolate them will also mean taking them off the internet, probably making them stand alone, right? However, isolating them doesn't necessarily mean shutting them down, because we also need to preserve artifacts for law enforcement and the rest in such a case as if there's an investigation and evidence is required. But then, after isolating, we need to recover. So organizations experiencing a breach, while they are able to secure the compromised environment, need to return to business, right? We need to return to business. So some form of recovery needs to take place. So then you now start looking at situations where these organizations, do you have reliable backup and restore processes? Are your backups live in such a way that we can bounce back almost immediately?
Recovery time.
So recovery time, so those are the things that are critical in those types of scenarios. If it's a situation where you do not have any reliable backups, then you default to your last known correct configuration, right? And then begin to patch things up there. And of course, you have to communicate, let your customers know. Of course, it is not a thing we do in this sphere, but I'm hoping as years go by, we'll begin to disclose, of course, because our people react differently to when you tell them there has been a breach. Everybody runs helter skelter, but yes. So to recover, you isolate, identify the entry points, close them, and begin to mitigate, and of course try to recover. So these things have to happen simultaneously. So when you have an incident response team trying to respond to the incident, then you should have a business continuity team trying to ensure that business picks up and continues as is. It's always good to set thresholds and time frames, and so your mean time to recover, and just so that all the stakeholders from board down to the last man knows that, okay, we have a 2-hour window, 3-hour window to recover our processes and get back to business. Because importantly, the business is in business to make money. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Data breaches and having to recover from it can be very challenging. That time everyone is running exactly. So I think what you do before then, your processes and your what's the word now? The steps you take, I think, should be properly outlined prior to any threats or anything.
So part of the documents you design and develop usually would be things around your incident response plan.
Yeah, incident response plan, yeah.
So your incident response plan guides you on how to react to these scenarios. However, it's not enough to design it. So that's where your process comes in, where you schedule either twice a year or 3 times. There's some organizations with every quarter where they simulate a breach.
Exactly.
And all the organizational elements, from legal to finance, HR, everybody. Exactly. So everybody knows their role and they play it as should be. So that when the real thing happens, everybody knows how to react.
Sometimes I just think that in a same word, why would you want to breach a company? But I mean, it is what it is.
I think because sometimes so it depends on what the rewards are, right? At some point in time, data was not as valuable as it is now, right? So some people used to just try to breach organizations just for the fun of it, but now there's a lot of incentive. People, so it's crazy, but then again, what can we do?
Yeah, so you have to always plan and prepare. So now that will lead us to misconceptions around cybersecurity, information security, and how the people who handle it, their lifestyle also. Some feel that you must be isolated and be drinking can of soda all the time, and the way
kind of soda is this kind of soda thing is almost real. I take a can of soda every day, funny enough. But most of the I think the greatest misconception is it cannot happen to me. That's the worst thing. Like, I know everything. I attend all my awareness sessions. I am extra careful. It can happen to anyone. That's one. Secondly, in cybersecurity, there is no silver bullet. So, meaning if you go out and buy a $1 million Ferrari, it doesn't solve all the problems. It just solves one problem, taking you from here to the next point. So there's no silver bullet in cybersecurity. It can happen to anybody. Another misconception people have is, and now this to the people side, right? I can have what's the proper word for it now? I can have a very active social life and still do cybersecurity. And my brother, it's not possible. Except you're not serious, really. Right? And then sometimes I go online and I see comments where people say top certifications to take to find yourself in cybersecurity, and I'm like, okay. I said, like, why didn't I see this 15 years ago? But of course, I always tell those I mentor that those shortcuts don't work. It can work elsewhere, but don't work. Reason being, in cybersecurity is one of those few, cybersecurity information security are one of those few fields, just like medicine, really, that if you goof along and get in, when the chips start coming down, the way you'll be asked, it will be so quick because your competence will show. I once met a guy who I was interviewing him, and he was giving me all my answers. Directly from Google, and I felt bad because I was like, I wish I had not read the same thing from Google, right? But it was saying it verbatim. So I asked, I said, "Come, did you actually like study this, or you got it off the internet?" And he said, "I got it off the internet." I was like, "Oh, okay." Cybersecurity is and information security is very delicate because of what is in an organization. An organization can make $5 million in a year and lose everything in one cybersecurity incident. Right? So because of that, you can't just assume that you just waltz in without building yourself and doing what you need to do. So those misconceptions are out there, and I'm happy that this kind of forum, this kind of platform helps to educate the young people to say, look, yeah, the shortcuts are there, but we always say one thing: the shortest point or distance between two places is a straight line, right? So why not just walk the straight line? It might be tedious at first, but by the time you get it, it will be worth the while. Then against going, It's so that's it really. And of course, another misconception people have is cybersecurity is their business. Doesn't concern you. It's their business. No. Cybersecurity is everyone's business, because we always say information security, cybersecurity starts with you. You. So it's everyone's business. It's something everybody should do.
Awesome. Now, wrapping up this, so people watching now say, CISO, if I want to become a chief information security officer of the company, what do I need to do? That's one. Two, what do you actually do? Like, what does your day-to-day look like? Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, if you want to be a CISO today, right? It's twofold: experience, of course, educational qualifications, obviously. So your building blocks should be your CISSPs. Your building blocks should be networking. You should be able to understand the basic networks and how traffic moves laterally and vertically. Right? You should have some basic understanding of Microsoft and all the rest of them. Basic IT. Now your CISSP will leverage all this, because once you understand the basics of technology, then you can now do the certifications of CISSPs, your CISA, CISA. Then there's a certification for CISOs, actually, the CISO by EC Council, right? And then of course the experience side. The experience side helps because you see the real life application of these things that you've read. Do you understand? And the only way you can do that is when you're growing from the ranks, when you're becoming if you start as an information security engineer, then you go up into a senior information security engineer, then an analyst and the rest. So the more you build competence, the more you experience some of these issues. Unfortunately, it will always happen. So it's not like someone say, are you trying to say the organization will be breached for me to get experience? Yes, you will. It will happen, right? It will happen. And when you learn how to coordinate people, right? When you learn how to douse tension, because usually when it starts, the CISO is supposed to be the guy that is calm, that can see, because you need to be able to guide different people to achieve different things. I had a conversation with one of my colleagues today, and he was trying to tell me something, and I told him, no. 2 days ago, I told you to do this. And then it was now today, he was now saying, you know what? Thinking now, you are 2 steps ahead of me, because you were telling me this. And I told him, yes, because that's my job. So as a CISO, you need to have that kind of temperament to say, okay, you do this, check this. So once you give guidance and direction, then you're able to, achieve quite a lot. So that's how quickly. And of course, there has to be a vacancy for you to become CISO. But then again, once you're able to build competence, right, and you're able to get your certifications as a WNDU, right. And I think one thing that also helped someone like me was because I dreamt it before, more like it was a dream I had, so I worked towards it, right? So one thing I always encourage young people to do, every 6 months, if it's not possible, every year, get a certification. Get a certification that will drive you closer to that goal. Yeah. And then for my regular day-to-day, first things first, aside from first things first, work, news. I listen to the news a lot. So if you come to my office to see me, you will always see the news on. I listen. Why? How I was trained is information that is going to be exploitable is actually on the news. Just people don't get it. When a fintech becomes a unicorn, it goes on the news. When a business gets a $2 billion evaluation, it goes on the news. That is the same way a hacker behaves, because I'm trained as a hacker, so I think that way. So I'm like, okay. So when you become a shining light, I'm like, oh, okay, so these guys have some money. You become a soft target. So I listen to the news a lot. Secondly, every day, of course, I check through the solutions we have at my place of work, and of course, I try to check in with all my team members. Now, dovetailing from what I said about experience and qualification, you see, it is from those experiences that I'm able to guide my team. So I try to advise them, like my team members, and guide them first so we can achieve the ultimate result. And what is our ultimate result? Ensuring that the organization achieves the strategic goals, short-term, medium-term, and long-term. And of course, on the other side, I try to give assurance to ExCo, senior management, and the board that what the program is working as should be. So from time to time, I review my cybersecurity program. I also get consultants to come and review it for me and evaluate it. That way, we're able to keep abreast of current trends. 3 years ago, AI was not a thing. Now AI is a thing, right? Generative AI is everywhere, and ML modules are flying left, right, and center. So it's always good to get a third party to review what you do and help it. So pretty much that's what every day I try to look at how the program can be improved, get better, and of course ensure the alignment with management's direction for the organization. There's no point in building something in the sky. Meanwhile, what you're protecting, you're not keeping eyes on it. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Some questions popped up on my head when you were talking. you talked about going through the ranks, but would you say that companies actually give room for information security people to actually learn? Do you think that, as against everybody's looking for a software developer or a cloud architect, so all those roles, how can one still come in an organization that does not might necessarily not give room? Or would you say that organizations in Nigeria are now becoming, So now, 8 years ago, yes, it was kind of difficult because everybody would say, what is this person even doing? People were really aware, right? But now, a lot of organizations have seen the importance of having an information security team, right? Even though it might not be called out specifically, sometimes some organizations, because of their size, they keep you with technology. Then of course by the time they grow, they cannot bring you out of technology. But it's better now. There is actually a career path, right? Just the same way only one person can be MD. So of course, only one person can be CISO. But then it's there's a career path. It's a path to it. There are different domains. Of course, if you're not CISO, you can be a security operations center manager. You can be a threat intelligence manager. You can be an incident response manager. You can be you can head the security infrastructure side of things. So there are so many. So it's a big spectrum, and there's a career path that leads that can take you from 0 to 10. Then just saying too, even if the organization, at least if you are in one, for those watching, and you necessarily are not called, maybe you're even head of IT or something, I think you can actually bring in some of these things into the organization before they grow into such an organization that can extract out specifics. You can begin to work even the job already before even being titled that this is your job, given the job title. Now, the other one is when you talk to management and say we need to do this for security stuff, and management are saying this budget is too much. How do you manage such a thing and say,
of course, it's I think it happens everywhere. The challenge with it is, unfortunately, the technologies we use are foreign. So first off, when you come with your budget, nobody wants to approve it because they are seeing the numbers and they are like, no, right? But the most important thing is always to ensure that the budget is structured in such a way that it meets the needs of the organization, and most importantly, it is designed to land the organization at its target. Right? So to that extent, the budget should be set out according to priority. There are some items that have to happen now because they would secure the business opportunities, and then the business designs and goals that will land us, or more like that in tandem with the strategy. But then there might be some other items that may not be as pressing, which are still designed to protect the organization and also protect the profits and all that. But if they are not pressing now, it can always be moved to the next financial year. However, if everything in your budget needs to happen now, then you just have to say it. However, just as every component of the organization is subject to the board and to the exco, you take it in good faith. If you're unable to get the approval you require, then of course there are compensating controls that can be put in place to protect the organization pending when funds are freed up for you to use. So it's a chicken and egg scenario. Which comes first, chicken or the egg? If you want 5 million, they give you 1 million. So what if other 4 million will do compensating controls? And you're in documents and you're in move on.
At least the key thing would be that they would know that you are taking steps, and you, just like you said, the compensating controls, you can always work out alternatives at least. But it's always good to present your best foot. Okay, so you mentioned AI briefly. So now AI is on the board now. How does it affect security in general? What do you think it's going to be something that would be tougher to do, or what effect do you think it will have?
So it's a mix of good and bad, right? So for the good part is generative AI and other machine learning models out there will help information security, cybersecurity in dealing with the mundane, routine tasks, right? So regular first level support for security respondents can be done by machines. And of course it will make work easier, right? And it actually does, because if you need to get some information, even though of course I don't encourage this within an enterprise environment, but yes. But the downside is threat actors have now weaponized it, right? So you find, like, prior to now, some of these phishing campaigns, malware campaigns against targeted organizations are sporadic, meaning it can start on Monday, by Wednesday it has chilled, it has gone down, because the person is saying that, okay, what you've put to protect your organization is resisting him or her, as the case may be. But see, with AI, it is persistent. It is persistent, and it will continue to whoever says it should stop. So when you block this IP, it just moves to the next IP and continues. When you block it, it moves. The block moves, just like that, and it can be persistent. Now that becomes a point of conversation for cybersecurity professionals, because you find that while we're trying to deal with the issue, it begins to metamorphose. And there's one thing people fail to understand with artificial intelligence. The machine continues to learn. So when it sees that Patrick has stopped using a spoon, it will switch up and say, okay, Patrick has stopped using a spoon. What's my next option? He's using a knife, and he moves. and it continues to learn, and then the more it learns,
the better it
more
gets.
difficult. And then it gets better. Exactly. And so that's why you see there's a lot of noise around to say, okay, so AI is good, but we need to hold it and rein it in, because if we let it go into the wild, what we will see are things that we will not be able to speak about. So those are the pros and cons. It's good, yes, but the downside, especially for cybersecurity, is enormous.
Oh, awesome. Semi-finally now.
Semi-final.
Yeah. Information to security, you talked about the physical aspects to it. I know that some people are beginning to develop data centers in Nigeria now. But what's your take on our systems? When we build systems for most organizations, we put them on cloud. We don't have access to the physical cloud somewhere in America, Europe, wherever data center is. I think some AWS now has maybe in South Africa. So what will you say about having control of our data in terms of the physical nature? Do you think we'll get to a point where Nigeria's data center space
cloud structure?
Yes, or that people will begin to want to use Nigerian data centers and all?
Okay, so maybe the next 15 years, maybe. And the reason I say that is, if you look at the agreements we sign with AWS, with Azure, right, there's always one thing that stands out, right? And they give 99.9% availability. Right. So if South Africa is not reachable, I'll just redirect you to Malta, right? And one of the things that drives 99.9% availability is power. So we that were having national grid like this, it's always that's a challenge. And then generating your own power is expensive, right? So it's a long ways, but it's not impossible. Something
the backbone infrastructure is not yet ready.
Exactly, it's not really ready, and
then even the actual security, physical security too.
Security. Do you understand? So, and because recall that it is not just having access to a remote site where you can. That site has everything that you would have ordinarily done on your data center on-prem, right? They've taken care of it, so you don't need to worry. And most of them also offer the security architecture around it. You just need to subscribe. How many people? So that's a heavy investment. That's why the names you hear are people who have deep pockets. The Googles of this world. Microsoft of this, or people who have the funds that can invest in these things. So in Nigeria, we hope that one day they will look at us to say, you know what, let's cite.
But even as if I put myself in their shoes with the way things happen, I'm not sure that investment is like a risk, because it will cost a lot to maintain, and all. So, but we'll get there one day, hopefully.
Eventually.
Yeah. So finally, I just want to appreciate you for your time. I know you are very busy. A lot's happening at your company, and taking the time out just to share your experience with us is really, really, we really appreciate. And I want to say, you say you have mentorship. How do you take in mentees?
Okay.
Is it from people who know you and say, please, I have this person who help me mentor him? How do you that our audience can leverage? And let me also add that.
Okay. Well,
go ahead, please.
Okay, so but in actual fact, what happens is I think all 12 of these people, I never knew them prior. They just reached out to me on LinkedIn, And so it started with one person, then 2 people, then 3 people. So I had to stop at 12 because I noticed that it was time consuming, because I would need to spend some time with this person to understand what the person is going through, and of course explain to the person how to navigate through these things. And so I had to stop at 12. But of course, and that's why I say I have 6 that are waiting, meaning
when on the wait list.
And when I mean waiting is it's not like waiting. It's just that they have access to me, but not as much as they would want. Because for me, it's important for us to groom those coming after us, so that they understand how things work and the best ways to achieve their dreams. I always tell people, I always say, never take advice from somebody who isn't what you want to be. Meaning, you cannot be taking advice from a poor man and you want to be rich. You cannot be taking advice from an unhealthy man if you want to be healthy. So identify someone who is living that dream of yours. Approach the person, and the person will guide you, because some of us avoided some difficulties just because we had people we were talking to, and so that's why I try my best to speak to a lot of young people as much as I can, so that they understand that, okay, you might think that you're in IT, you're in information security, you're in risk management as a dead-end job. It's not a dead-end job. It's not a dead-end job. All you need to do is be diligent, right? Focus on what's important. Leave the noise. You will get to where you're going, definitely.
Thank you so much. Important. Leave the noise. Focus on what is important. Thank you so much. If you don't mind, we'll probably drop if you give us your LinkedIn profile,
yes,
so we can drop it in the description when this video goes live, so people can reach out. And if you are lucky enough to meet the list, good luck to you. But at least you find this video that you can always come back to it, at any time, and go back. And he mentioned some key things, right from the beginning of how he, went through the path. So if you pick those things, I'm sure that you would be able to make value out of it. So thank you once again. We really do appreciate you coming, and we hope that we can reach out some other times, if we need to. And you have really been of help to us on this channel, and thank you very much.
Thank you.